My name is Becky Boone. I am a senior fellow with Code for America. My background is software engineering. And this year I worked with the city of Boulder on civic engagement on a housing project.
Hi, everyone. I'm Mylene Garcia. I work for the city of Oakland. I'm the city's online engagement manager, and I just wanted to take a minute and recognize my colleagues, several of whom who are in the audience. Thank you all for coming, who will likely contribute their stories of civic engagement as we progress. Should I open up?
I just want to give you a quick overview of what this session is going to entail. And what we're going to do is talk about our framework for civic engagement, focusing on how you can expand reach. And Mylene's going to share some stories from the city of Oakland about how they've done some of these things. And then we also want to hear from y'all, looking at where you're from, sort of the industries you're in. I think that y'all probably have a lot of stories that you could share with us as well that represent community engagement.
Great. So as we open up, I think it'd be really great to hear from the audience about what y'all define engagement as and what some of your ideas around engagement are. So from the audience, how would you define engagement? Volunteers?
Street protests.
Street protests. We have mad love for disruptors in Oakland, as you heard this morning. Getting residents to talk to you. In the back? Productive conversation.
Facebook threads.
Facebook threads. Fantastic. Any others? Dialogue. Great. And then I'll follow up with that really quickly. So since our discussion is called low-tech civic engagement, how do you define that potentially differently? Flyers. Community meetings. Social media. Door-to-door. Mailers. Okay, cool. Great.
Yeah. So, let's see if this works. So community engagement, there's many different aspects to it. We don't really have time in this session to go over every single one of them. So we're going to focus on expanding your reach and also information in sort of low-tech ways. This is kind of tricky because we are going to talk about some useful data for expanding your reach that's online. So it's a little bit technical, but not completely. So when we're talking about reach, information, forums, productive action, and feedback loops, these are sort of the things that Code for America that we've identified as the important elements of community engagement. So reach is really, you want to make sure that your strategies include all residents, specifically those that don't typically engage. That your information is easy to find and understandable. So whether that means putting it in a language that part of your constituents can read, or if that means taking it down to like a fourth grade level so that more people can understand what you're trying to say to them. Another thing is forums, making use of a diversity of spaces. And so you're talking about virtual as well as in person. And productive actions, which is having a clear ask of the residents and a clear action and a path to a desired outcome. And then last thing, which is really hard, and I'd love to hear any stories from y'all that you might have that is a good example of this, but feedback loops, is once you've gone through all that effort of gathering input from your community, how do you then take that information and share it back with them so they know that they've been heard?
Great. So, to Becky's point about reach, the city of Oakland is one of the most diverse communities in the nation. And so with that means that we have a lot of considerations that we need to think about when we're talking about creating community forums, when we're talking about doing outreach, whether that be our equal access ordinance, which means that we need to translate materials in several different languages, whether that means that we need to, when we're using technology and we're advertising community events, that we're bringing a broad spectrum of the community to the table to represent. This also means that we really need to engage in the breadth of what Oakland has to offer. Oh. There we go.
Wait, more.
Yes.
All right. I swear I'm a software engineer. So, shame. So to emphasize, you really want to ask people a question that adds value to your work, because you're trying to build relationships. If somebody comes to your meeting and they feel like you're just checking a box, the chances are that they're going to be disengaged and not want to come back. So you really want to think long and hard about what you're going to be asking those people when they show up. You didn't have something here. So what this means is, when you think about what you're asking of people, are you asking them for an outcome? So do you want a group or individuals to come to a decision? Or are you asking for some sort of collectivity? And that means that, are you brainstorming ideas? Are you trying to get people to be open to different ideas? So when you think about what you're asking of people, these are two ways you can kind of think of it. Are you asking for an outcome? Or are you asking for some kind of conversation, essentially?
And some examples of that, in the city of Oakland, we have some folks from our budget office. We have a pretty robust budget process that we're continually improving upon. And one of the things that we do around our budget process is community forums in our different council districts, often held at community locations, churches, synagogues, community centers, etc., where we inform the public. And a lot of other communities like your own, like the ones that you reside in, probably have very similar meetings. The other example of something that we've done in the city of Oakland is in 2013, we did this really amazing redistricting process where we actually had a very tangible outcome that we were looking for, and had people actually draw out where they saw their districts and those lines, which contributed to that redistricting process. So I think that sort of distinctively looking at a specific outcome, and I think that informs the feedback process that Becky will talk about later, but also sort of collecting that information and brainstorming what that actually looks like to the community and really understanding what that means.
And then, of course, reach. So what we're going to do today is we're going to have a breakout session where y'all can get into, maybe whoever's in your row, you can work with them on this. But we're going to be talking about this tool called, my mind just went blank.
Census Reporter.
Yeah, Census Reporter. Thank you. Census Reporter, which basically it was created to help journalists understand demographics using census data. And it's very easy to understand. So even if you don't consider yourself very tech savvy, it's really pretty graphs that tell you who lives in your city or in your neighborhood, so that you can then compare that to who's showing up to your meetings, and then you can decide to take action on the discrepancy between those. And so one of the things is, sorry, that was you. Yep.
That's okay. So a few more examples from the city of Oakland. So it's about asking people making sure that we're asking people to do something that adds value to the community, and also sort of broadening the breadth of the folks that are participating. And so one of the great events that I think that we have done, I believe it's the last 2 or 3 years, in partnership with our civic hacking brigade, is Open Oakland, is City Camp. And I think that that's a tremendous example of a place where we bring people who aren't traditionally from the technology sector, whether that means that they're internal staff that don't necessarily have rote coding skills, or if that means that those are folks in the community that are coming out to these various centers or City Hall itself to really come and talk about how these tools are implemented from the city perspective. The other really cool thing that I think the mayor's office did recently was a budget and brew session. So, the budget is kind of this dry process. If those of you could see all the way up to the front of the stage this morning, you could see there's a pretty dense, thick book on the budget. Not everybody has time to read hundreds of pages on the budget. Not everybody has the expertise and know-how of the budget office and the ability to articulate it as well as our staff. And, budget and brew makes it fun, makes it sort of appealing to those people who might not otherwise read a 600-page report. And I think some of the exercise we're going to talk about is really getting to the data at hand of who those people are going to be, and really identifying them and making sure that we're targeting them appropriately. Not quite there yet.
Yeah.
over here.
All right, yeah. And so this is sort of the overview of what we're going to do when we do the breakout. Is you want to determine, first of all, amongst yourselves, one of y'all can just pick whatever your city is, or maybe whatever the next meeting that you're going to be attending, public meeting is, as your example, and maybe say who's showing up. So if you've attended one of these meetings in the past, who are the demographics that are currently showing up to these meetings? And then figure out who isn't showing up by looking at the census data for that city and determining who that is and who's not showing up. And then set some goals to make up the difference. So basically, like if you want by the end of the year, like December 2015, to increase the number of people under the age of 40 that are showing up in your meetings, and then setting clear goals to accomplish those things.
I think some specific examples of goals Becky alluded to really early on. So you heard Karen, who's in the back, talk about the digital front door project. And so one of the things that we're really looking to do, just at a very simple level, is lower the reading level of a lot of the communications that we're putting out there. So really looking at that in terms of flyers, but also digital communications, whether that's high tech or low tech, making sure that the reading level of our materials is really between 5th and 8th grade reading level. Not just so that people that are English speakers can read it, but also so we can translate it more easily to the general public. So I think that these are really important things, and that's actually a measurable outcome that we can look at.
All right, so we're about to break out into some groups. I'm going to hand out sort of a piece of paper that you can kind of record as you go through the process for the group. But what we're going to do is there's one tool that you'll need, which you can get to on your phone, and maybe somebody in your group has access to this if you don't. If not, I'd be happy to pull up the information here, and that's Census Reporter. So it's just censusreporter.org. And what you do with this, so it's a very easy visual way to see who the people are in your neighborhood. You can also get this by smaller parcels of data for if you have a specific neighborhood that you're trying to target for your meeting. And then you can see what is that neighborhood made up of. Maybe sometimes you're having a meeting in one neighborhood. I've actually had this experience in the city of Boulder, but people are really interested in that topic. And they'll come from all of these other places to participate in it. But if you're really trying to make sure that you address the concerns of that neighborhood, and you're looking at your demographics, you can really see these people aren't represented. Next time we come to this location, we want to make sure that we reach out and form, relationships with organizations that'll be able to help us reach these populations. So I'm going to pass out this worksheet real quick, and do you want to?
Cool. Yeah, and I think that while Becky's passing these out, a couple things that I would like you to keep in mind. Think of a project community meeting, something that you have upcoming that you could leverage the resources of the people in this room to really identify and use this exercise for your potential. And if you don't have anything, I have a slew of colleagues in the room who would probably love to partner up with you on things that they're working with. I don't know if you guys want to raise your hands. I know that Jada, Anna, and Jackie, and Brad are all here, and they all do amazing work in the city.
I'm passing out 2 per row, so you can either do one big row if you want to work together, or you're welcome to break out into a couple different groups. But the idea is somebody picks, either if you're with a city, pick some meeting that you're working on for your next time. And then really think about if you're asking people to come to a decision, or if you're trying to get them to have a discussion. And then hone what that is that you're asking of them. Then what you'll need to do is determine who is currently participating, and then use Census Reporter to see what your demographics are for that city. So real quick, we're going to do this for about 15 minutes, and then we want everyone to report back. And then I'd like to open up discussion for people to share sort of the ways that they do this in their communities. All right. If y'all are ready, we will come up with your problem statement. We want to find out what you're looking at. Is it outcome-based, or is it, about a collectivity? And then one thing you learned in your group, and it could be anything. It could be how somebody is doing something differently than you, but just one thing your group has learned, and we'll go around in a bit. Yeah, try it.
Hello? Did they hear you? Do you want to try again?
Yeah.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Can you hear me?
If you can hear us, clap once. If you can hear us, clap twice. If you can hear us, clap 3 times. Thank you.
Works like a charm every time, doesn't it? So I think we'll go around to each group. I'll come around with the mic. It'd be really great to hear about your meeting, what you learned from the meeting, and then specifically sort of what your problem statement was. What sort of outcome were you looking for from the meeting? You guys want to start here?
Oh, yeah. And let me preface, this guy has a really interesting problem. I don't think we helped him much, but maybe you guys can. So. Go ahead.
Introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Ken Steffens. I'm with the City of Sunnyvale. I'm working on a project right now to try to redesign our Sunnyvale Civic Center. So that includes our main library, our public safety building, and City Hall. So we've been in a community engagement process to try to get the community to help us get preferences for features and get their input on it. And we've had a series of community workshops. We have another one coming up. We're actually going to do a design charrette where we roll out a map of the Civic Center, and they can say, well, I want the library here, and really we should remodel public safety, and we don't want to spend the money for an addition, and we want underground parking, or we want a park over here. And so people get to play with the site plans. And this is a third in a series of workshops we've done. A lot of the people showing up at the workshops have been an older demographic. It'd be nice to get more people under 40, and based on the demographic that we looked at on the website, there's probably fewer Asian people that have participated than are representative of the community as a whole. So it's like, how do we get that group to participate? We are trying to do a lot of different outreach methods, but it's hard to reach a certain demographic. We use Nextdoor. We have a quarterly newsletter that's mailed to people. We do postcard mailers to the neighborhood we're in. We have an interested parties e-list, and every event we ask people to sign up, and so we email them about all these workshops. And we've had a decent turnout, but it hasn't been really representative of our community as a whole.
And one thing that you learned that you thought was pretty interesting? It could be something random from another person. It doesn't have to be specifically about your problem.
I think part of it is, trying to get out to non-traditional sources, I guess, for us, whether it's trying to connect with churches or building that relationship within the community that may tap us into other segments of the community.
And do we have any maybe comments, suggestions, support that we could provide, Kent? Yeah. Anybody? We'll start over here first.
Okay. So my name is Nikki Verani. I run the open data program for the city of Houston, but I lived in Sunnyvale for 2 years. But one of the things that we talked about last year, actually at the CFA Summit, was about doing family-oriented events like picnics, parades, I think is specifically what we talked about last year. But knowing Asian culture a little bit and how it's more centered around family, if you had maybe like a family-oriented event type of thing, maybe you would get more people that are representative of the community that you're trying to reach out to, and that might be a good opportunity for you to engage with them.
Cool, thank you.
Hi, I'm Colleen Clark. I'm from Dane County, and this is a City of Madison idea that a nonprofit actually came forward with. They have community ambassadors, they're called. So the nonprofit pays a stipend to ambassadors, and they are the liaison for community meetings. They get the word out. They're oftentimes the grandmas that everybody knows in the neighborhood forever, and oftentimes are already heavily tapped by government to give their input. So those folks now get a stipend, and that builds leadership within the community. And there's been more community representation at some of those meetings because of it.
Fantastic. And I think we have time for one more.
Brad Johnson, City of Oakland. I would recommend that you might want to look at engaging with your local school communities. Your high school students themselves probably have great input on how they would want to use that space and those services. And at your elementary schools and your middle schools, that's where parents are. That's where parents are engaged. That is how they view their community. So backing on those meetings, you might be able to get some younger parents who have ideas, particularly at your elementary schools, who want to see that space used. So again, your school communities, I think, are really important assets, and a lot of our communities see the school community rather than the city or the municipality as, how they exist.
Thank you. Okay, do we have a second group that would like to volunteer? Or should I just... Great.
Hi, Jada Chu from the City of Oakland. I actually work in the Parks and Rec department, and we do a concert series every year, Sundays in the Redwoods, and it's up in the hills. And we try to, it's four shows, spans over 4 weeks, right? So each week there's different genres, and so our Latino and Hispanic Sunday that we do is usually our lowest attendance. And we've tried different things as far as, well, this year we did more of a online push versus flyers, right? Because we're trying to save money with our budget. So we're like, okay, we can't print as many flyers as we normally do. And it was probably one of the lowest attended shows that we've had in the past 10 years. And I am having myself a difficult time tapping into that community. And so we did e-blasts, we did social media, we did Nextdoor, we did have flyers and we did pass those out, but I think maybe not enough as much as we normally have done. And so I think we've come up with maybe tapping into some of the radio stations, and I think that the churches and the schools is a good route that I don't think we've actually done. And this year, our flyers were not translated, so I think that was a big problem as well. And there was also some conflicting events that same weekend, so targeting that community. So maybe, working with other departments to make sure we're a little bit more strategic in how we provide things, because I think we're like oversaturated with events now, which in the past I don't think that we maybe have been. The one thing we learned. Which was? Gilbert shared with us from Hong Kong. Would you like to? You can speak on that portion.
Okay. So the one thing that we learned was Gilbert shared with us in Hong Kong, we wouldn't have that problem because everybody speaks the same language. And so we were just talking about the diversity and different languages and just getting the word out. And so we were just kind of amazed when he shared that with us. We were like, yeah, that's right, huh?
Thank you. Do you want to add anything? Cool. Next group. Oh, perfect.
Okay. Hi, I'm Rachel. I'm from Provo, Utah, which is a college town. It houses BYU, which is a Mormon college. Heads are nodding. That's good. Okay. I interned for the city council over the summer, and now I'm working for their information systems department. And so kind of cross between those two things. And I was talking about our city council meetings. They're pretty bleak. We get... They're bad.
I think that's universal.
Yes. So like the general attendance kind of looks like it's a big giant room and you have 7 council members and then there's 5 people who show up. 2 of those live tweet all of the city council meetings that we ever have. And they're very biased and they know all. And so I feel like they're always trying to catch us in our mistakes, and that's why they're there. And then for the rest of it, it's just it's really sad turnout. And so I think part of the problem that we have is that we're a college town. And so when our median age is 23.4, everyone's busy with something else. And they're college students, and so they haven't thought about this stuff yet. And so we were thinking about how to cater to them, and didn't come up with a ton of solutions, but for the most part, we're just trying to figure out how to meet them where they're at and then make all the information that's happening in this town relevant to them, even when they're only going to be there for, let's say, 4 years. So Mobile town hall. Any big things that you learned? Just now or overall? We talked about what did we talk about? Oh, public comment period. We talked about that and how problematic that is. And we talked about the possibility of doing like mandatory introductions, but then that wasn't the best idea. So we didn't come up with a conclusion. So if you have some, shout it out.
I also am very interested if anybody has good examples to share about getting students to engage with City Council. I think because they're a more transitory group of people, they don't feel as engaged in local politics. So if anybody has any good examples or even counter examples.
I see a hand in the back and two. You can scream? Okay.
So I'm with Commonwealth, Massachusetts, but our capital city, Boston, has a tremendous influx every year of students. Over 100,000 of them come and spend 9 months and then leave. And everybody moves on September 1st. So one of our main engagements with students is on that day, whether it's with knowing not to drive on certain roads with your U-Haul because you'll totally just get the top clipped off, or landlords that could have better practices. We also call it an Alston Christmas, where basically everybody moves out, leaves all their furniture that they don't want to take with them to the next place. It's extremely, engaging and a little disruptive for the entire city. But we start with focusing on one way to engage them when they're at their most hyper attuned, acute to the city as an infrastructure, and that's what we start with. And then I'll let the city folks talk about other ways that they continue to engage college students, but that's what we start with.
So I think some of the things that I'm hearing is attuned to when they're actually interacting. So what is that engagement point? A lot of times I talk with colleagues at the City of Oakland about what engagement points are. When are they actually meeting us at City Hall? I'm also hearing a lot about the different demographics that we're working with, whether that's the Asian community in Sunnyvale, whether that's students in Provo City, that we have very specific demographics that particularly some of these tools like City Reporter can really help us out with. Was there another hand up over here? I'm going to take some in the back and then okay.
Hi, I'm from Yuba City. It's about 2 hours north of here. My name is Jessica. What we do is twice a year we only have 2 big high schools in our area. So we go to the high schools for our council meetings, invite the whole high school out, and that's a good way for them to see what we do, what we talk about, and try to focus some of our issues or concerns that affect them at that council meeting.
Great. I saw a couple of hands over here.
I just wanted to say, from our city and county council, one thing that happens is they'll release the agenda, especially on controversial issues, a day or 2 beforehand, and I have to believe it's somewhat intentional, and that definitely depresses turnout where people would be able to, coordinate and go out as activists.
Cool. Do you need a mic?
No.
Okay, cool.
So I'm also from Nashville, North Carolina, and we stream our meetings. And in terms of connecting with students, if you say promoted that angle, that they could just go online, or maybe a place on the college campus, if they could say play the meeting there. Maybe instead of you wouldn't have them physically at the council chamber, but you might be able to get them involved by broadcasting in different ways, and that could maybe start greater engagement.
Cool.
Hi, I'm not from a city. I'm from a startup called Agora. So we actually run online town halls, and we experimented with one feature, which is SMS polling. And what we've learned is that younger people, students or college students, they expect us to bring the conversation to them, not themselves to a conversation. So that's why they don't go to meetings, because they have no idea what's going on in a meeting. But we actually did posters and things like display at a bus stop, and we asked text in if you want the bus stop to be moved, and we got lots of people texting us because they're more likely to use technology to engage. So I feel ways in which we could take the conversation to them, and obviously we integrated the data into the online town hall so you can see it, but ways to bring the conversation to them is a really effective tool, especially to engage the younger population. Thank you.
Awesome. So let's take another group from maybe the back. Anybody? Maybe over here?
Hi, I'm based in San Rafael, and I do work in civic engagement around Northern California. Hi, Matt. And on the student piece, an example in San Rafael, Dominican University has a really robust service learning program. So rather than starting with expecting the students to come to the city council meeting, instead, they were partnering with homeless folks. They were doing murals and empty storefronts. They were walking alongside the downtown streets team. And so they got engaged at a heart and human level, and then that transferred over to the policy making. So they came in through a different door than, here's the meeting notice. And I just want to do a big ditto to the Oakland suggestion about the schools and understand, it's the same user-centered design. People don't think about the jurisdiction as community. They're thinking about their church, their school. So the promoters, the people who are out in the neighborhood, the trusted inviter. So this kind of broadcast, we put it out, we tweeted it, we flyer, that they don't know you. That's kind of a hard, pickup line there. You got to go with someone that they know and trust.
Great. Is there another group that would like to share a piece of their discussion, some interesting things that they learned? Maybe the group back here.
Yeah, great. Thanks.
My name is Nick Aziz. I'm from the city of New Orleans. I work for the mayor's innovation delivery team. We actually launched last year a workforce strategy around connecting disadvantaged job seekers to the economic boom that's happening in New Orleans. So one thing that I think is very interesting that we have to kind of figure a solution to is that this population of individuals, we're actually targeting African-American men because statistics show that 52% of them are unemployed in the city. This population of individuals don't have a sense of trust in the government, number one. They don't believe that the government is for them. They're very disconnected from these services. So how do we kind of change their perception of government? One thing that Bradley mentioned when he was talking about just the housing issues here is that at the meetings, a lot of things are about just venting about their problems. So one thing I think in New Orleans, particularly around just inequity and racial issues, is that a lot of people just need that opportunity to vent and just kind of express their issues with the current system, which can hopefully lead to solution generation.
Cool, thank you. Do we have another share?
One important thing is to realize that most conventional public meetings are really pretty awful and they don't really work very well for public engagement. In fact, there's a fair amount of data suggesting that people who go to them come out with reduced levels of trust in government than when they went in. So you may actually, by doing all this great recruitment to bring people to a city council meeting, you may actually be making the problem worse. And that's a problem in and of itself. Those kinds of meetings don't work for anybody. They don't tend to work for the city council members or staff. Those people don't like them either. So that's part of the question is how do you kind of make them productive meetings for the various purposes you might have for them? And then the second question is, then having done that, how do you bring people to them? And I like the idea of Census Reporter, and especially if you combined it with various ways of kind of mapping networks, so you can figure out, both by mapping people's online social media connections and also their face-to-face connections, what are the influential people who might bring a whole bunch of people with them, or what is the important church or school or whatever that you might want to reach out to.
Thank you. And I think we have time for 2 more comments.
Yeah.
Great.
I just wanted to raise one quick point, something that we talked about over here in the context of the city council meetings. We were discussing logistically how city council meetings are run and that so many topics are covered that it may not necessarily be relevant to bring everyone into the discussion and just raise so much wide support for attending the meeting. So I think the online town hall was an interesting thing to hear because that is a good way to get directed marketing out and actually access people who are interested in the specific issue that you're trying to address. But I guess that was just something to think about. I'd love to hear anyone's thoughts on how to be more targeted about who to bring into specific discussions.
Cool. I think we have one more comment, but I think Becky alluded to this, and I think this was alluded to earlier about also, and Matt had mentioned, really involving community organizations and being able to identify which community organizations are sort of that invited partner or that trusted partner. And I think we had one final comment over here.
Yeah,
I mean, my question is, why are you engaging? So a typical council meeting or board meeting is going to cover so many issues, and folks care about one. So my comment would just be, have a community conversation around an issue or a question that's salient to that community. They'll show up.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah, I think there was one. Did you have a comment? Okay.
I think with city council meetings in general, there's a lot of there's kind of a high barrier to entry, and it's kind of scary to go into the town halls, speak your piece in front of everyone. So one idea that Patrick from Nashville and I were experimenting with was just simply embedding the live stream of the city council meeting, and then just a Twitter embed next to it. I mean, very simple, and of course, the meeting agenda underneath. And ultimately, the idea would be to have someone acting as a liaison at the city council meeting, so you could kind of attend, maybe get your questions heard there by someone who is, someone could speak for you who is well versed at speaking at these things. So.
Yeah, I think that sounds great. And it's more fun to have that conversation going on next to it, I think, when you're watching City Council, for sure. So I think that we're just about out of time, unless anybody has really something important that they want to share. So just to kind of follow up, if you want more practical applications around the different elements of community engagement, there is the Code for America's Civic Engagement Toolkit, which is online. Also, a really excellent book that breaks this down in different ways. It's a book of essays. It's called Democracy in Motion, Evaluating the Practice and Impact of Deliberate Civic Engagement. So thanks for your time.